Good, happy Sunday morning, everyone. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this Sunday morning and this edition of Politics with Riley King. It's Sunday, December 22nd, 2019. Let's begin. As you know, this past week that we just finished up with, a lot of political news happened. Like, the House did the vote on impeachment, and it passed. Article 1 and 2 of impeachment passed. Let's take a listen to that video to recap you on that from ABC News. Fallout after historic House vote to impeach President Trump. Let's take a listen to the video from ABC News.
Take a live look at the White House. President Trump is waking up there this morning as the third American president in history ever to be impeached, facing these headlines in major newspapers. You can see it right there, these front pages all across the country.
Those are headlines the president never hoped to see, but at a rally overnight, Trump blasted the whole effort, calling it a political suicide mark for Democrats. Next step, a Senate trial, but House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is now raising questions about the timing and fairness of that trial. Senior congressional correspondent Mary Bruce was there on Capitol Hill for this historic moment, tracking all the fallout now. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. Months of intense debate came to a partisan pinnacle here last night, but this fight is far from over. All eyes are now on the Senate and the power plays there that will determine the president's fate just months before the election. Overnight, history in the House.
Article 1 is adopted.
With that swing of the gavel, President Trump's legacy now forever marked with impeachment, only the third president in U.S. history. The charges, abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. The votes along near party lines. Not a single Republican breaking ranks. Democrats largely united too, just a few opposing impeachment. As the House was voting, the president rallying his troops in Battle Creek, Michigan.
It doesn't really feel like we're being impeached. We did nothing wrong, and we have tremendous support in the Republican Party like we've never had before.
He insists Democrats are the ones who will pay the political price.
Through their depraved actions today, crazy Nancy Pelosi's House Democrats have branded themselves with an eternal mark of shame.
And he attacked Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, who voted to impeach him, going after her husband, Congressman John Dingell, who died earlier this year.
Maybe he's looking up, I don't know. Maybe. But let's assume he's looking down.
The Congresswoman responding, "Your hurtful words just made my healing much harder." On Capitol Hill, Republicans lockstep with the president, adamant he did nothing impeachable.
This vote, this day, is about one thing and one thing only. They hate this president. They hate those of us who voted for him. They think we're stupid. They think we made a mistake. They want to take away my vote and throw it in the trash.
But Democrats say Trump's actions left them no choice, that he invited foreign interference in the U.S. election by pressuring Ukraine to investigate one of his chief political rivals, former Vice President Joe Biden.
He corrupted our elections and compromised our national security so that he could keep power. Not power for the people, power for himself.
Democrats say they had to act now because the president presents a clear and present danger. Chairman Adam Schiff with a warning across the aisle.
If you ignore it, if you say the president may refuse to comply, may refuse lawful process, may coerce an ally, may cheat in an election because he's the president of our party, you do not uphold our Constitution. You do not uphold your oath of office. Well, I will tell you this. I will uphold mine. I will vote to impeach Donald Trump.
This fight now moves to the Republican-controlled Senate, and we do expect that later today, leaders McConnell and Schumer will sit down and meet to try and hammer out a plan for this trial early next year. But the Republican leader has made very clear he plans to be in, quote, total coordination with the White House and does not expect the president to be removed from office. George.
One thing that could delay the trial, Mary, this idea that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is now considering withholding sending House impeachment managers over to the Senate as leverage in negotiations with Senate over witnesses.
Yeah, George, this came as a bit of a surprise last night. The Speaker, after the vote, would not commit to sending the articles of impeachment over to the Senate for consideration, citing concerns about an unfair trial. Now, some Democrats have been suggesting that they do this to get some leverage in a fight over their terms, including, of course, Democrats' demands that they call certain witnesses.
Mary Bruce, thanks very much. Hi, everyone. George.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Michael Bennett makes several campaign stops around state in 50 town hall tour of New Hampshire. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
At Beltates, customers will find everything they need for a building project. The brand names you trust to perform. And with a fleet of over 50 delivery vehicles, we deliver when and where our customers need them. Beltates Building Products. 9 locations throughout New Hampshire and Massachusetts.
I'm grateful that you're here.
In Sunapee, Michael Bennett continuing to connect with New Hampshire voters during his 50 town hall tour across the state.
I think this is a great form of communication. It's an opportunity for me to learn from people and for me to give people the benefit of whatever I've picked up along the way.
You have an embarrassment of riches here in New Hampshire, getting to really to meet people face to face and to meet so many of them.
Bennett's campaign says it needs to raise $700,000 by January 16th to compete. They're one step closer, saying they just hit the first $100,000 mark.
We got off to a phenomenal start the last few days, and we're on the way to being able to raise that money.
The Colorado senator spent most of the time answering questions and having a dialogue with voters.
Climate, gun control. I've always been interested in mental health and how government officials can make an impact on that.
I liked a lot of what he had to say, and I was bursting with questions.
And explained why he's against Medicare for All.
I warned about it from the very beginning, and now you're starting to see people come back to the idea that maybe we'd be better off completing the work we did with the Affordable Care Act with a public option that doesn't require us to raise taxes on anybody.
In Sunapee, Siobhan Lopez, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Lewandowski says decision on Senate run is intimate. Former Trump campaign manager says he'll decide by end of year. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
Time for special year-end savings from Mahindra, the world's #1.
Since the summer, Corey Lewandowski has held the megaphone in the Republican U.S. Senate primary to take on Jeanne Shaheen in 2020. Sitting down for an interview that will air in full on Sunday, he said a decision on a campaign launch is imminent, and he met recently with the president and Senate leaders to discuss the race.
Making sure that, A, I have the financial resources, my family is behind me 100%, which they are, and it's the best way for me to help the president be reelected as the chief executive of our country. Look, all of these factors are pointing me in one direction. That direction, if I had to make the decision today, is to run.
The former Trump campaign manager says impeachment could become a big issue in the Senate election.
Jeanne Shaheen and Maggie Hassan have to be very, very careful if they're going to fall in lockstep with AOC and Rashid Tlaib and the far left of the Democratic Party by voting to remove Donald Trump from office.
Lewandowski could still take a pass, robbing this race of major Republican star power. But his political skills could be in demand overseas.
We've seen some reporting that says you could be joining the re-election team for Benjamin Netanyahu. Any truth to that?
I did go to Israel and I spoke with Netanyahu. He is probably if not our best friend in the world from a U.S. government perspective, his race is critical. And I haven't made a decision if I'm going to go help Prime Minister Netanyahu run for re-election. That's a decision that he has to make. But I do understand the strategic importance of having a strong, tough ally in the Middle East.
Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. "2020 Democratic candidates clash in final debate of the year." That happened this past week that we just finished and wrapped up with. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
Now we're going to turn to the Democrats running for president in that fiery debate overnight. It's the last one of the year, and the gloves were off with Iowa frontrunner Pete Buttigieg feeling the heat, and Lindsay Davis was there for it all and joined us now from Los Angeles. Good morning, Lindsay.
Hey, good morning to you, Michael. Things certainly got hot at times, despite the fact that the first hour of this debate was pretty much politics as usual. Then there was a sharp turn as the conversation changed to campaign financing, prompting a massive pile-on Mayor Pete, and that wouldn't be the only clash of the night. Fast-rising candidate Pete Buttigieg walked onto the debate stage with a target on his back, and it didn't take long for the gloves to come off.
The mayor just recently had a fundraiser that was held in a wine cave full of crystals and served $900 a bottle wine. Think about who comes to that. Billionaires in wine caves should not pick the next president of the United States.
Mr. Mayor, your response. You know, according to Forbes magazine, I am literally the only person on this stage who's not a millionaire or a billionaire. So if this is important, this is the problem with issuing purity tests you cannot yourself pass.
Did not come here to listen to this argument. I came here to make a case for progress, and I have never even been to a wine cave. I've been to the Wind Cave in South Dakota, which I suggest you go to.
Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, has been picking up steam in Iowa and New Hampshire. But the youngest candidate has also faced questions about his experience and electability. Senator Amy Klobuchar calling him out on an earlier loss in a statewide race.
And I would, Mayor, if you had won in Indiana, that would be one thing. You tried, and you lost by 20 points.
But the mayor firing back.
If you just go by vote totals, maybe what goes on in my city seems small to you. If you want to talk about the capacity to win, try putting together a coalition to bring you back to office with 80% of the vote as a gay dude in Mike Pence's Indiana.
On impeachment, Democrats were united.
It was a constitutional necessity for the House to act as it did.
The final debate of the year was the smallest yet. With only 7 candidates on the stage, there was more talking time to go around, benefiting the only minority at the debate, Andrew Yang.
And the question is, why am I the lone candidate of color on this stage? Fewer than 5% of Americans donate to political campaigns. You know what you need to donate to political campaigns? Disposable income.
But it was this moment from Joe Biden.
The little kid who says, I can't talk. What do I do? I have scores of these young women and men who I keep in contact with.
It prompted an attack from former Trump press secretary Sarah Sanders, mocking his stutter. The candidate firing back, "I've worked my whole life to overcome a stutter, and it's my great honor to mentor kids who have experienced the same," Biden replied. "It's called empathy. Look it up." Sanders later apologized, and while Biden did have a strong night, the general consensus at least inside the room, is that Senator Amy Klobuchar shined as she tried to make a case for why someone from the Midwest should best occupy the Oval Office. Guys?
Lindsay, this was one of those debates where I think really one of the best debates of the cycle. The moderators did a great job, asked real substantive questions, and everybody had, and we saw a lot of that in that piece, moments to shine, from Biden to Klobuchar to Buttigieg, Sanders, and Warren. So it's almost a shame that it happened so late in the year, right before the holiday. We'll see how many people watched.
Fewer candidates on that stage really allowed some of the lesser-known ones to shine.
Andrew Yang did well, too.
Yeah. Okay, George, thanks.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that is it for this Sunday edition of Politics with Riley King. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Sunday and have a great week ahead of you, everybody. We'll see you back here next Sunday for another edition of Politics with Riley King. Goodbye, everyone.